Welcome to The Business That Pays with Adam Tolliver from Artisan Financial Strategies, where we mind the business that pays you. In this podcast, we empower successful families and business owners to make informed decisions about their finances through courageous conversations. Through his expertise as a practicing investment advisor representative with Eagle Strategies, LLC, a registered investment advisor, Adam teaches you how to create a wealth ecosystem by combining a practical technical framework with your personal, family, and community values. Join us for this journey where Adam normalizes sustainable wealth building and gives you the keys to make courageous, proactive financial decisions.
Everyone talks about teamwork, but it is critical when it comes to reaching your financial goals. Welcome back to The Business That Pays with Adam Tolliver of Artisan Financial Strategies. I'm Patrice Sikora. Adam, I gotta say, you nailed it with the title of this episode. Teamwork makes the dream work. Talk to me about the importance of team.
Patrice, this is really, really important to me as one professional who finds myself working in a collaborative sort of environment with my clients and their other professionals all the time. Quite frankly, there are all types of professionals that could potentially come together to make up a team of advisors that help you in executing on your financial goals. You've got financial advisors, you've got insurance agents, you've got attorneys, you've got accountants, and any number of additional disciplines like consultants and coaches, et cetera, right? And so a big thing that clients have to figure out is, how do you know what your personal roster needs to look like? And how do you know that this is truly your financial dream team? So what are the various types of professionals, and how do you assemble them together so that they're covering all your blind spots, but they're not necessarily redundant, right?
Yeah. But as a client, how do I know this? I don't.
Absolutely. So the big thing to know and understand is that it's really, really difficult to be high level proficient in every discipline necessary to execute a strong financial plan. So you can have some people in your circle who are really smart and really sharp, but oftentimes they may work in a silo that's highly specialized.
Mm-hmm.
And as your financial life grows, as your life moves on, your needs will fluctuate as far as what they are and what the complexity and depth of those needs are. They tend to span a multitude of critical areas. And it's a good thing to have professionals who are intensely focused on those specific areas, but also knowing that you've got multiple, they'll have different vantage points that can help sort of mitigate the potential blind spots. One thing that we always say is, if the only thing you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. And so specialization is really helpful, but we want to be able to have a team because that can help to mitigate some of the limitations that a highly focused silo type of professional can have. The good thing is, when you're building a team, you can kind of assign roles and give someone the responsibility for helping you to navigate and audit who needs to be in the room and when.
Is that up to my financial advisor to let me know we really need to talk to somebody in this specialty now?
So I will openly admit my bias as a financial advisor. Of course, I think so, right? But I also want to be candid and admit that sometimes this person may vary. It depends on the nature of the relationship, how long you've been working with someone, and how much you trust their expertise to be able to look at things from a broader scope. Traditionally, it does tend to be a financial advisor or an accountant who kind of plays that role to say, looking from a broader view. But as a financial advisor, and I'm sure all financial advisors in my network would agree with me, that we often like to operate as a quarterback, where we do have our own core competencies, but then we also act as sort of a general contract to help you understand what other roles need to be filled. And oftentimes a client will come to you with some of the roles already filled, but we like to keep a strong bench of professionals who have the competencies in these key areas that we do not, so that we can help you navigate when and how to work with them.
So if I were to bring an expert, say a estate planner with me to meet with you, would you work with them?
Absolutely. That's a critical part, because ultimately as a client, you're at the center. of our interaction. And what we want is to have goals that are aligned
Mhm.
and strategies that don't contradict each other or are even redundant. So we're not doing good work twice or undoing any good work that's already been done. I think we've used this analogy on the podcast before, but it's very similar to building a house. You may have someone remodeling your house and you're redoing the kitchen and the living room and the bedroom. And you may have the world's foremost expert on bedrooms and the world's foremost expert on kitchens and the world's foremost expert in living rooms. And they may do a wonderful job in their individual rooms in the house.
Mhm.
But if they don't have any communication, if they don't have any conversation or anyone to help them see the full picture together, they could end up doing some redundancies. You could end up overspending. It could look well in a silo, but when you put it all together, it doesn't flow.
Yeah.
And so with the financial plan, it ends up being very similar. It's important for the professionals to understand that the client is at the center. And because of that, you need to have a collaborative working environment.
All right, Adam, you are my quarterback. Who's going to be on my team?
So, my favorite answer to this question is that it depends
Of course.
because
Of course.
everyone's situation and needs are completely different. And not only that, but your individual needs and situation will evolve and change over time. So, the relationships, who you need, and the nature of those relationships, how you work with them over time, are going to evolve. Some relationships may feel somewhat transactional and transient because you don't necessarily need to revisit that particular planning as often. That may be like an estate planning attorney where sometimes you really, without a whole lot of change, don't need to see, until every 3 to 5 years, sometimes 5 to 7 years, people think.
Mhm.
Or another might be someone like an accountant where you do your taxes every year. Or if you're a business owner, they may be helping you with a lot more complex areas. And so the key areas that are pretty traditional for most people with a decent amount of financial needs are going to be a financial advisor or planner, an insurance agent, attorneys, that may be a state and or business attorney, and then accountants and tax professionals.
Well, let's start with we'll come back to financial advisor. No, I guess we better not because they are the quarterback, aren't they? That's what you've just been telling me. So tell me, how do you operate as the quarterback?
So the big thing as a financial advisor is what we want to do is come in and take a comprehensive look at all of the areas. And it may vary. Some advisors want to implement and help you in executing specifically on each area of a plan. And then others may refer you out for every individual area. So you may just pay them a fee for planning and then they refer you out and say, you need to do this, 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 and you need to go do it with
Oh,
this
okay.
person, that person, that person. Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that's really the idea. We want to go through and build a framework for you for how we're going to make decisions moving forward, sort of an if this, then that. Currently, your situation is XYZ. We want to get you to this point. These are the steps that we need to take in order to get there. And this is how we'll govern ourselves to adhere to this plan. We'll set a schedule for how often we meet, how often we review, and what actions need to be taken. And then we'll prioritize along the way, right? And in that process, we'll be identifying this is when we need to bring someone else into the room. This is when we need another expert in this area. This is what we need to do, but this is the person or the people or the group that we need to go to in order to execute on it.
So going back to your house analogy, you are the general contractor.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly right.
And yet, as a financial planner, a financial advisor, you also have your own core competencies, right?
Correct. And that's going to vary by the advisor. So, for instance, in our office at Artisan, we are proficient in both retirement planning and insurance planning. So, we can execute in those areas. And we do that with great confidence. And in that silo, also include investment planning.
Mhm.
What we don't do is tax advice, right? So, we will consider taxes, we will teach and educate around some fundamentals around tax, but we refer out to accountants and we work with accountants. Do that pretty regularly. The same thing with estate planning. We're proficient, we can educate, We can share our knowledge and strategies. But ultimately, when it comes to execute on estate planning documents, we bring in an estate planning attorney.
Okay. Now, I have to admit, I never really thought about insurance and insurance agents as being necessary for financial planning. I mean, to
Hmm.
me, insurance was you needed life insurance, you needed house insurance, homeowners insurance. But
Hmm.
tell me why it's such an important part of risk management.
Risk management is critical to any financial plan. And this goes back to our four pillars. We did our episodes on the four pillars. So
Right.
let's revisit those real quick. The first one is understanding our money relative to time. The next one is understanding our money relative to function. The third one is protecting our downside. This is where risk management comes in. And then the fourth, of course, is getting in the market, staying in the market for the long term. Protecting your downside, it's difficult to really express just how critical it is without telling some of the many horror stories of people who kind of gloss over this area without emphasizing it. But imagine you were going to set sail on a long voyage over sea, right? And that voyage was going to be for 40 years. As you can imagine, if you're on the water for 40 years straight, at some point, you're going to run into some storms. You're going to run into some challenges. When we're looking at a financial plan, we do imagine it in that way, setting voyage. And risk management is about taking into account what are the things that could reasonably derail our journey. We know where we want to go. And in a perfect world, it would be smooth sailing, blue skies, calm waters the entire time. In the real world, we know that no 40-year stretch of anyone's life presents that smooth of a ride.
No way.
And so some of the things are completely unpredictable, right? Most of the things are going to fall into some categories that we can understand. We've got to protect our property, our home, our cars. For one, we're required to, right?
Right. Right.
By law. So we've got to do these things. But the others are common things that no one's immune to. People get sick, people get injured. Unfortunately, someone could sue you. People pass away too soon. People are unable to work due to an illness or an injury. These are things that could reasonably happen. And insurance agents, a big part of their role is to help you manage that risk in a reasonable way. A reasonable way, meaning what are the odds of these potential things happening to me? And based on my financial capacity, how much of my money can I lend to protecting myself from these things happening? And that's something that's going to change both the likelihood of an event happening to you and your ability to cover yourself for that likelihood will change over time. And that's why insurance agents are so important because whatever plans you have of growing your big pile of money and living the best life possible, of course, we want to plan for our sunny days, but rainy days do happen. And what we don't want is one or two rainy days to completely derail what's possible for all of those sunny days that we're planning for.
And as you mentioned, this is going to change throughout your life.
Exactly. Yes. And that's why an actual relationship, this is one of those that people often think of as transactional, but really should not be. You want to have a really strong relationship, if not with the insurance agent, with the company that they represent, feel comfortable understanding what it is that you have, reviewing it on a regular basis, reviewing your risk management, your insurance coverages is something that you should do every single year because things happen, life changes, and you want to make sure that your needs are still met because what you put in place a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago may or may not still fit
Mhm.
your current situation.
Absolutely. Attorneys. This makes sense. Tell me about this.
Yes. So attorneys are also what I put in the risk management realm because a good legal counsel team is going to save you and your family and or your business, especially for those business owners out there, a lot of money, stress, and heartache. Essentially, what they're doing is being proactive and reactive in helping you protect your assets. And these are tangible assets and intangible assets. It's not always a fun conversation to have. It's also not always a fun bill to pay an attorney for hours or for documents. But I would really, really strongly encourage everyone to understand that a good attorney is really worth it. It is difficult to measure, but ultimately an estate planning attorney is in place to help you protect the people you love and direct with some order and clarity on how your wealth and assets are going to be passed along when you're no longer here or you're no longer able to make that decision for yourself. These relationships do vary. There are definitely some attorneys, as I mentioned earlier, who are like the go to person for a family just because their skill set and the range of their services are that wide and that deep. But it is really important. And it's one of those things that you need to take care of when you are capable, when you're of sound mind, when you're clear headed and not at a high emotional state, so that you can really do what's best for your family.
Do you find that your clients have come to you with relationships already with attorneys, or do you help them find an attorney?
There is a pretty wide range, and we work with a few attorneys in the artisan office that we trust a lot. And when I say in the office, I mean our office farms out to a few attorneys that we trust a lot in the state of Georgia. And it really does vary. Some clients will come and they'll have something in place, but quite frankly, the majority tend to either not have done their estate planning documents or they haven't updated them in a while.
I think that's probably very common, not having updated them.
Hmm. Yep.
All right, so from attorneys, we move on to accountants. As you said though earlier, many people do have a relationship with an accountant.
Yes. So, of course, there are a lot of people who, they may do their taxes for themselves. They'll go on TurboTax or another of these companies that you can sort of walk through an automated step by step system and upload your documents, right?
Mhm.
As your financial needs become more complex, people start to see the value and understand that the help of an accountant to work with one on one is actually really valuable. And if you're a business owner, especially, you start to see that value almost immediately. And so accountants are critical, and most people have a relationship with one that they need to work with on a at least annual basis.
Right. Well, what do accountants offer you besides taxes?
Yes. So, especially if you're a business owner, an accountant can also help you with things like bookkeeping and payroll administration, cash flow management and forecasting. They keep relationships. Typically, they'll have relationships with bankers and things like that. So if you've got financing needs, accountants are extremely valuable. And this is why oftentimes they may also be one of those people that you consider a potential quarterback. Now, accountants are different animals. I'm not going to poke the bear too much because I know I've got some friends and listeners who are accountants. So this is not a jab at you, but oftentimes accountants do not want to deal with the rest of the picture, which is why most clients will have an accountant and an advisor as well, because an advisor, as we mentioned, is more of the general contractor who will get into the weeds on all of the other things that accountants prefer not to.
And I don't want to poke the bear either. However, I think a very valid comment has been accountants tend to look backward, things that have happened already because they're doing your taxes. The financial advisor looks forward.
Absolutely. And it is really critical, and especially for those who have complex needs, who may be business owners and investors and things like that. It's important to have a good relationship between your financial advisor and your accountant because a lot of tax strategies may span over multiple years. If you look backs or look aheads, if you're trying to look at certain deductions that you have or tracking your losses over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, so that you can get your credits for
Mhm.
those. It's really important that you have that working relationship because your financial advisor may be privy to information that your accountant isn't, and vice versa.
Is the client really the one responsible for the communication between all members of the team?
Ultimately, because it's the client's finances, they are always responsible. That being said, the entire point of having competent advisors in your corner is that you have people who understand and recognize the importance of being proactive and collaborative. If your advisors are not willing to work with one another, you need to evaluate the relationship with the person who has pushback on that. Or you need to really thoroughly vet with them why they're so resistant to work with a particular professional, because they may know something reputational wise or process wise or philosophy wise that they feel is not a good fit for you. But ultimately, all of your professional advisors need to recognize that you are at the center of the circle. And there is really no reason for the rest of us to be in business without you. So having us work together should be a norm.
How do you feel about working with other advisors? If perhaps they don't agree with what you might be saying, but you're both hopefully working in the best interest of your client.
Absolutely. And disagreements about philosophy or approach or strategy absolutely do happen, but we're professionals and that's part of the process. So typically, if you're coming to the table, you want to be able to have a working relationship with another advisor that you have a rapport enough for them to respect your process and methodology for how you came to the conclusion you came to. So as long as they're willing to hear me out and understand we made this recommendation or this decision based on XYZ. These are the benefits that come with that. These are the pros and cons, and these are the alternative options that we looked at. As long as you're conducting yourself as a professional, most advisors are not going to have a problem with that. And they're going to do the same thing. They're going to come and let us know. And it's a constant learning experience for everyone involved because, again, I may be speaking to someone who has a much deeper and wider breadth of knowledge and information in an area that I'm only dangerous in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And so it's very important to come with humility and focus and recognize that your client ultimately is who you're working on behalf of. And that's the entire point of being a team.
Do you like being part of a team?
I do. I absolutely do because a lot of the clients that I work with have daunting needs. And I trust my education. So does my business partner, Meredith. I trust my experience and the things that I've learned, but we are literally always learning. We feel good about our processes and what we have to bring to the table. But ultimately, what we don't want to do is to pretend to be smarter than we are when we're working in such a precious area of people's lives. And so we don't know everything. We don't pretend to know everything. And we shouldn't need to. Ultimately, these are other professionals who have done their deep dive work, taken their bumps and bruises, gone through the same types and much greater, in some cases, strenuous education programs in order to get to where they are. And so you come to the table in a collaborative spirit. You get an opportunity to learn, you get an opportunity to better serve your client, and ultimately you can come up with together much better recommendations than you can apart.
Excellent. Adam, how can people reach you if they want to talk?
You can reach me at workingwithadam.com.
And subscribe to Adam's podcast. It's very easy. The Business That Pays. Subscribe right on this page, and you will know when new episodes are released. And we also encourage you to please share with others and like this podcast and comment. I'm Patrice Sikora, and let's talk again later.
Thank you for listening to Business That Pays. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the Artisan Financial Strategies or Eagle Strategies, LLC, a registered investment advisor. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial professional provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment strategies.
Adam Tolliver, registered representative offering securities through New York Life Securities, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a licensed insurance agency. 1125 Cambridge Square, Suite C, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30009, 404-210-9311. financial advisor offering investment advisory services through Eagle Strategies, LLC, a registered investment advisor. New York Life Securities, LLC, and Eagle Strategies, LLC are New York Life companies. Artisan Financial Strategies, LLC, is not owned or operated by New York Life Securities, LLC, or its affiliates. Neither Artisan Financial Strategies, LLC, nor its advisors provide tax, legal, or accounting advice.